Yep,
Think
good.
I'm preparing, okay.
Thanks, Dottie.
We can't have things run too smoothly or Mayor Bassett will not come back.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
It was technical, it doesn't run smoothly.
All right.
Being live streamed.
You ready?
Yep.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today's Hudson 7 meeting. As Vice Chairman Jay Baisley, welcome everybody who's here today. This meeting is live. So we get people to show up. It works. We are at the Joint Water Board Treatment Plant, North Road. So welcome, everybody. As far as voting members, who we have as voting members today?
Randy Alstad for the city.
Lynn Ruggiero from Hyde Park.
Russ Gilmore, Town of Lloyd.
Nick Butler, Town of Soaps.
Deborah Galito, Dutchess County.
Yeah, we have a quorum
We have a
here.
quorum. We have a quorum.
Elizabeth Spinsey, the town of Rhinebeck.
Emily, John Lipscomb, Mike Porter, Sal, welcome everybody to
Yes,
today's
Amanda.
meeting. Can you hear me? My voice
Amanda's
is going.
from Ulster County.
She a voting member though?
She's a voting member, but you have to, I mean,
Yeah,
just for a
okay.
quorum, and then we can go and
Okay.
have everybody chime in online.
Call to order. We did a roll call. Approval of last minutes. Oh, no, Randy, I'm not looking. I'm looking down the. Don't look at me.
I don't do
No,
that, it's
no.
not me.
Everybody read the minutes?
Yes.
Anybody have any changes to minutes? No changes. The motion to
I'll
approve the
move
minutes?
it be approved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Treasurer's report. Elizabeth?
Yep, here I am. Hi, everybody. As of the 28th of August, we have a checking account with M&T Bank. All of you have received invoices. I do not have an up-to-date accounting of what hasn't been paid. We were still missing several payments last week. I don't have online access yet. I am still working on that. We did pay our first and only check on the 9th of September for $6,250 to our coordinator, Rebecca Martin. And as of next meeting, I will probably, if everybody wants to, publish our bank records and check log for total accountability, if that's how you'd like to do it. I'll either send it out to, I'll send it to our coordinator, and the executive officers can decide if, I guess, if you want it as part of the minutes. That's how I've done it in the past with other municipal organizations. That's all. You'll get an email from me if I haven't received your payment next week.
Elizabeth, is there a lot that haven't paid?
I'm sorry?
Are we missing a lot that haven't paid?
We were missing about half, but I have not checked in a week, so I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, because Rebecca, I spoke to you the other day about the towns, and you thought it was here. And I spoke to our comptroller, and she doesn't remember sending it out.
Okay.
So that's why
Yeah.
we to see who was sent out or not. You know.
The two counties hadn't paid as of last week in a couple of towns, so
If you let me know if we paid ours. and the other
I will. I'll send out an email. I'm still getting up to speed with online access, and I was on vacation at the end of August and then came back to budget. But we had enough money to pay all of our debts and all of our everything that we owed, and I figured I'd follow up with everyone.
The comptroller didn't have an address.
Huh?
That was your second question. Where do I send the check?
I sent it to the town of Rhinebeck.
Okay.
It's on the invoice.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was on the invoice.
We'll follow up with
Yeah,
that.
okay, sure.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Hudson River Water Protection Coordinator Consultant Report.
Yeah, first of all, can you all hear us?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm here in person. I'm happy to be here in person. I'm Rebecca Martin, and and you've seen me on Zoom. but I'm the the coordinator for the Hudson 7, acting as a consultant. And so this month I prepared a report. So I've been doing this work since August 1st. We didn't meet last month, so I have quite a bit to update you on. Did you see the report in the source materials?
No.
You didn't? So it's in the source materials, but I'll provide an overview of the report, just so that it's straightforward. So there are three things. One is the report. Two is we created a goals document for the Hudson 7. And then three was a work plan, my work plan based on the goals. So let me read the report and maybe you have questions. Can you all hear? Elizabeth? Yeah, all right. Bear with me because I'm trying to get online here.
Sorry, yes, I was muted. I can hear everything.
All right, so in your source materials, under Rebecca Martin Consulting, are all of these documents. And so I just need to, I'm sorry, having trouble getting online here. All right, so let me review the goals here because I'm not, see, this hotspot doesn't work. Yeah. Sorry, everybody, all ready and not able to get on. All right, so my work plan, number one is I've been coordinating the Hudson 7 meetings, which entails all of the coordination. We haven't really talked about all that the coordination entails. Helping with all of your agendas and your minutes and your organizing your guest speakers, engaging the community to attend and participate in the work where applicable, ensuring timely responses, etc. To create a 501c3. So there's a whole process here. So in the work plan, meeting with the Hudson 7's lawyer, with Gary Bassett over the months to identify the appropriate nonprofit intermunicipal structure to bring back to the council for discussion and approval. This is the overview. Hosting facilitated strategic sessions to support the Hudson 7 in developing its mission, the what statement. So part of the 501c3 process. And tonight we're going to be approving our recent statements from Mackie Butts is to start digging into what's the appropriate 501c3 and to work with the council to develop a mission in order to submit all of that to the IRS and get ourselves started. So to support the council in its work to develop the vision, the why, and ongoing goals, which we've been doing for many years. Anyway, and our goal statement I've updated. That's part of your packet. Maintaining the legal invoices for the council and work with the executive team to develop new bylaws that allow for effective 501c3 governance, as well as creating more clarity with the committee work for decision making. Establish policies and procedures with the Hudson 7 executive team. So overall, that's the work that we would do following the 501c3 when you're starting to look at your bylaws, to adopt new bylaws that would help provide the guidance for the 501c3 and developing framework policies, looking at the policies we have now and identifying the policies that we need. To develop a strategy for maintaining sustainable funding streams, which is going to be a big work in the next year, which includes, shoring up the work that we have or the contributions that we have now. But there, I've been talking a little bit about water user fees in the past. We've talked about that and doing some research as to how that would work, and tax-funded municipal dues, grants, etc. there's a lot to think about there. And in 2024, helping to create 2 small fundraisers if we're ready, which could be as simple as a celebration for our 6th anniversary. And there's different things we can do online. There's Giving Tuesdays, so they're small lifts to kind of give it a try. Doing work to shore up the DWSP2, just to continue that work, and I'm gonna move faster here because I'm taking up too much time. There's the salt front study that we're looking to continue to liaise with the DEC, to continue our watchdog roles, which comes through our committee work. Our committees are Chippy and the Lower Soapus Creek and Anchorages, and just general outreach and advocacy for the Hudson 7. One of the things that I did recently was meet with Randy and trying to center our work to see how we can better collaborate with the water operators and do more education and facilitation to support the work and to bring folks together in the Hudson 7 throughout the watershed. So that's the work plan that you have in your, and I started out reading everything and then just did an overview. That's in your docket. And I can't open up my report, unfortunately, which is just the one sheet, but it is in your source materials. So I'll pause in the case there's any questions for me.
The only comment I got are the goals that you set.
Yeah,
I think everybody should review the goals, and not, the first point was the vote on today, but I think they should review them, look at them. If we have changes that we want made, even we email back and forth over the month, send it to you.
Yep.
And try to get some answers to try to move it forward. Some of the goals are great. Some of the goals may be a little bit harder, I think. You know, everybody's got a different opinion. That's might go process how we should move forward on it.
have you had a chance to look at any of that? Yeah.
I looked at the goals and the work plan. I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, in the future, do you prefer, because we've always done everything, you know, through the email. Do you want hard copies? How do you want my report going forward?
I like the way you sent it to me, broken down in an email. I can pull out what I want, going into docs and looking for it's harder. If you get the email, you can open up, read it, print out what you want, not print out. I think
Okay,
that makes it easy for me.
great,
If we went over everything that day, it was just so much easier to follow.
good. Elizabeth, do you have anything to ask? Anyone else? Amanda? So it sounds like Jay is asking then, Jay, you're asking everyone to review it, the goals and the work plan to discuss and adopt in October.
Yeah, we can do it in October. If we can send you any changes that we think we'd like, so instead of coming in and trying to go over the whole thing.
Yep.
You know, try to straighten some of it out before we get to it.
Great. And this month's report is in the source materials. Sorry, I can't open it. Here.
Do you have any email communications? Or no?
Hmm?
Do you get any communications from anybody outside of them?
Yeah, we're gonna move on
Yep.
to, okay, yep. All right, so communications, we have an update on Indian Point tritium discharges that was received from Ellen Weininger from Grassroots Environmental Education. This was before the governor signed the Save the Hudson legislation to engage the Hudson 7 on another resolution, which we did. We crafted a letter and resolution to the governor at that time. The Hudson River Watershed Alliance contacted us. There's a watershed group DEIJ training and visioning workshop that's happening on the 28th of this month. If you're interested to go, I've signed up for that. I'm going to go. And then there's their annual Watershed Alliance event that's happening on October the 11th. That's virtual and an in-person session on the 24th. We received communication from Doreen Tiganelli to alert the Hudson 7 about discussing the Dutchess County waste incineration. may affect the Hudson River when mercury and other pollutants are emitted. Many depend on the Hudson for drinking water, and others, out of necessity, consume fish from the river despite warnings. And she submitted an article to read Landfill in the Sky, Dutchess County's new solid waste management plan, leaning heavily on incineration, heads to crucial vote Thursday.
We actually also looked at Doreen's comment because all of their wastewater goes to our plant next door. So I asked for mercury reports on that, and they were extremely low.
They're low.
They're very low.
Great.
They said the other day when I saw her report, I figured besides the sky, they feed us directly. So it was a pretty good shape.
Great. Diane Dintroff reached out to us prior to Louis Pugh's visit to let us know that Louis Pugh was visiting the Upper Hudson Water Treatment Plant. And we let her know that he was also visiting Marist College and the Poughkeepsie Water Treatment Plant when he came through. I don't know, Dan's not here. So there is a link that's in the agenda to the event. There was a panel here that Dan and Louis and I think the president of Marist participated in. Were
It
you
was
here?
in Marist College.
It was.
Wasn't anything here. They didn't come here at all.
They didn't, the tour, they were gonna tour, but it,
Yeah, they decided against it. So,
yeah.
yeah, so
Did you attend the
No.
panel? No,
they didn't attend mine. I didn't attend theirs.
all right.
Seemed fair.
And finally, Paul Melrose forwarded lead service line funding updates from Massachusetts, and that email is also in your source materials. But Paul, I don't know if there's anything you want to add there. You're on mute. You're on mute, Paul.
Just wanted to remind everybody that October 16th, you have to have the inventory completed, and that you only have to go through your paper records. You do not have to do anything else. And then you also have to have the your implementation plan by October 16th. Those two things are the most important. If you change, changing your lead pipes or whatever, that's really not necessary at this time, but you can do it, but those two things are the most important things to get done.
That's it for communications.
Public comment?
Oh.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is John Rath. I live here in Poughkeepsie. Grew up in Buffalo on Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, and then spent 30 years in North Texas. So very different water issues, and sometimes no water at all to deal with in Texas. And so I'm really thrilled to be back in Poughkeepsie, where 2 blocks from the Hudson River. I say that because I appreciate this group, because I think you're the experts, so to speak. I have a brother in Lancaster, New York, who works for public service and in the water and sewer division. And so I hear things about like tritium and lead and PFAS and now mercury, which are scary to a citizen that doesn't understand the technical things like you guys do. I stumbled on the Hudson 7 because you guys were concerned about the electric line coming down the river, and I really appreciate that. So it's been very helpful for me to sit in on your meetings and learn kind of from the folks who are boots on the ground what the real issues are, and be able to make at least or see different perspectives than you might see with an advocacy group below. I am concerned about the incineration plant because stuff going up in the air, it's got to fall in the water somewhere, whether it's nearby or whatever, as well as the pipeline or the electric line coming down and the PFAS and the lead. So I appreciate you guys letting me come in and kind of hear from the experts.
Thank you for your comment.
And let me share my concern.
Well, thank you. Uh, With the motion for approval of Matthew Hudson Rice bill.
Yeah, so old business, so the recent Mackey Butts and Whalen invoice, there's a link here, so you can see the actual invoice and all of the items that are listed there and that they've all been approved. And we just need the council to approve payment so that Dutchess County can cut a check. And then we'll be caught up for the time being. The amount is, and again, the internet doesn't work. It's about 1,100 and change. So that's and we have, how much do we have left over? About,
So it was like 11 or 12,000 remaining.
right, to start the next part of the process.
We have a motion to pay to Matthew Hudson,
I'll make a motion.
well, for not to exceed $1,200. What is this? Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great,
Sorry.
No, no.
great.
Okay, on the next steps, or
Yeah, so now Gary and I will meet with Ian McDonald, and we'll start discussing the options for the Hudson Sevens 501c3 for an intermunicipal council to bring back to the full council to discuss. We'll also start having a conversation about how the Hudson Seven wants to develop their mission statement, which will be important. So we'll get guidance from Ian. We're making a list of questions. I'm sure the council will have more questions, but we can proceed now and take the next steps.
Do we have a sense from Ian, a rough timeline of what it might take to get there?
That's the night. Yeah, Ian did map out, send us a letter about the sort of things that were available, but he did it very early in this process. So we can dig that out and see whether or not it's relevant now. And we'll have to, devise a timeline based on, the decision-making and our mission and, whatever the other items are that we have to work through and agree to. So, I'm sort of hoping that we can get it together by December.
Oh,
it would be nice.
Yeah,
Ian's pretty good, but we're dealing with this somewhere else, and it's an organization that's already in effect. It's difficult. It's difficult to get through the process.
yeah,
Starting from the beginning, we may be better off starting from scratch.
yeah. Filing isn't, that's the first step, as I understand it. Then there's a lot of other steps in order to start really using. Like, we're not gonna just go online and start claiming. There's a lot of steps, so we'll find out. what those are.
She paid that directly, right?
No, does she pay it directly, or does it go to the county cuts the check?
The county cuts the check.
Okay.
Elizabeth, the county cuts the check.
Yeah, so we'll get a timeline.
It's the grant, right?
Mhm.
It's grant money, correct?
yeah, it's a $20,000
That's
grant
okay. Yeah,
essentially.
so it goes to the county.
from the county.
And next steps,
Great.
you got anything else?
Not on that item.
What's next?
Do you have- I don't know if anybody has any other questions.
Exciting.
Yeah, me too.
So,
Indian Point. Just an update, Jay. So the Save the Hudson legislation was passed by the governor. On August the 18th, there's a link in the agenda to her announcement. And the DOB is meeting tonight. The next decommissioning oversight board meeting at Indian Point is tonight. It starts at 6. It's usually 6 to 9. And for folks who can't attend, they always record it, so you can always watch them.
Since they've been discharging all along, do they have a date to stop now, or is it an immediate stop?
So there was, they were talking about releasing tritium in the spring, and then that was delayed. And the date was sometime in mid-September. And now that the legislation is signed, that's delayed. So tonight at the DOB meeting, I think the public will get more information on what's happening, how Holtec is going to respond to the governor's signing the Save the Hudson bill into law. So to be continued. As it stands now, there's no plans to release tritium. But
Is there a treatment plant? Or where does it go? It's gotta go somewhere. What are they gonna do with it?
Right now, it's just being stored on site, right?
yeah, yep.
And how much they hold? I mean, I get the site, but sooner or later it's going somewhere.
Well,
They discussed
Riverkeeper
it.
has been calling for the tritium to be stored on site for half its life, which is 12 years, to allow time for there to, for technologies and
Okay.
the like to develop. So that's what we're hoping.
Right.
So,
Nice.
sorry.
We got an extra one.
Anchorages. So John Lipscomb is here tonight from Riverkeeper. But before he begins, because this agenda is combining 2 months pretty much, just to say that there was a Hudson 7 committee formed on anchorages. And John was appointed last time, or in July, as a technical advisor. And the Hudson 7 Anchorage Committee met and decided to request the RNA process, which is the Regulated Navigation Areas process from the Coast Guard. And we received a letter finally from the Coast Guard with that process, all of which is in our source materials. And since then, Riverkeeper has submitted a letter to the Coast Guard, and John is here to give us an update.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can, John.
Yep, good. So this is relatively short because the bulk of the discussion will happen with your committee. But we sent a letter yesterday dated the 18th, or 2 days ago, dated the 18th, to the Coast Guard. And we are contesting the legality of the Port of New York redesignation, which is what the Coast Guard did with their MSIB released earlier this year. It's the redefinition of the Port of New York, which changes the anchorage regulations north of the Cuomo-Tappan Bridge. That's the issue. Before this redefining of the geography of the Port of New York, the entire estuary was the Port of New York, and therefore governed by Port of New York anchoring restrictions and regulations, which restricted commercial vessels from anchoring anywhere except designated anchorages, of which there are several off Yonkers and only one north of that at Hyde Park. That was the whole fight back in 2016 when the maritime industry requested all those additional anchorages. That was the status quo until this just recently, in July, when the Coast Guard announced that they had studied the historic geographic limits of the Port of New York and had gone back to a prior version, which limited the Port of New York to 25 miles from the Statue of Liberty. So what we're doing in this round, and you all have this letter now, you were CC'd when we sent it to the Coast Guard. It's a strategy separate from the regulated navigation area strategy. So we have the letter from the Coast Guard to the Hudson 7 on how to proceed with a petition for an RNA. We'll call that Plan B. And Plan A is this letter to the Coast Guard where we're basically challenging the legality of the regulatory change. We're calling it a major federal action, and as such, it needed to be receive a NEPA review, which includes an Endangered Species Act review. It needed a Coastal Zone Management Act review, and it needed to comply with the Administrative Procedures Act. So We're saying the action you took, which caused a change, which resulted in a change in anchoring rules on the Hudson, was a major federal action, and it needed to comply with these. Since you did not do these reviews, we're contesting that the action is illegal and needs to be rescinded. And we'll see how the Coast Guard receives it. I'm not going to theorize, on the air, but I think it's a very good legal challenge to the process. And so now we'll just see how it's received and what their response is. Based on their response, we'll have to decide what's next. But the only other part I want to deliver to you is that Riverkeeper's public-facing advocacy on this issue is rolling out tomorrow and Monday. So the letter is thick. It's a legal document. But it is an open letter. We stated to the Coast Guard that it's an open letter. And so we're going to share it with the public. But to put the letter in context and the issue in context, we're creating some public-facing documents. Those are being finished as we speak. We'll go online tomorrow or Monday. And then we will have a plan to communicate with all the elected officials at municipal level, county level, state level, and federal level for the reach of the river from essentially Dobbs Ferry to Kingston, Rhinebeck. That's the area of the river that is affected by the change in anchoring rules. So we'll also reach out to press. So message being, the summary is that in the next week, we'll be rolling this out to the public. And off we go again. I can answer general questions, but I think that the more specific questions are probably better for the committee, which will then report back to you guys. I'm conscious of being in a live public meeting.
Any questions for John this time?
So I just want to, so I'm understanding, so you're saying that because the changing of anchorages is considered a significant action under the National Environmental Policy Act, they never did a full environmental review which is needed for that. And as a part of the ERs, my understanding is there's an open public comment period, so none of that happened with this change.
So it's our understanding that none of the reviews that were required happened.
Okay.
It's our understanding that the Coast Guard reviewed the historic boundaries of the Port of New York. And Rebecca, I believe, has in your data archives a white paper where goes on for about 30 pages, where they discuss their thinking on that led to the redefining of the geography of the Port of New York. But it wasn't a NEPA review. It wasn't a coastal zone management review. It wasn't any of those things. So.
Have you seen the white paper?
I don't think I've seen that, but I work very closely with the NEPA process for a variety of projects, and I know exactly what you're talking about. You have to go through this quite extensive environmental review. It involves public input. So I'm surprised that they didn't do that.
Right, and what's really significant, which I'm sure you all remember, I'm keenly aware of it because I'm reviewing the files right now to pull excerpts to put in our documents that we send out to the public. Back in 2016, when the public comment period was active for what we call Anchorages 1, where the maritime industry had petitioned the Coast Guard to designate 10 anchorage grounds. You're all familiar with that story. But what's significant here is that from the Department of State to the federal government to the DEC to parks, there were all kinds of objections to increased anchoring of large vessels in the Hudson. So effectively, then you will all recall there was that port and waterway safety assessment. What happened in 2016, the Coast Guard received about 10,200 comments in the comment period. They were generous and extended it. I'm not finding any fault with the Coast Guard whatsoever. They extended the comment period because they saw all the interest in the Hudson Valley. Of the 10,200 approximate comments, 10,000 of them were opposed to additional anchorages being designated. That 10,000, when we looked at who those signatures represented, it was about 1.5 million people represented by 10,000 signatures. The Coast Guard then held a port and waterway safety assessment, you may remember, had hearings in Poughkeepsie, and they had open public meetings in Albany, and in Poughkeepsie. The port and waterway safety assessment was unique in this valley. It's never happened before. And the great thing about it is all stakeholders provided input. All stakeholders. And the metric the Coast Guard uses is taking all input from the industry, maritime industry, from all other stakeholders. They try to determine if additional anchorages are needed for navigation safety. It's a specific target. And the outcome of the PAWSA was no. In fact, no additional anchorages are needed for navigation safety. So the Coast Guard, in making this geographic change to the Port of New York, effectively threw out all the comments from the public, elected officials, state and federal agencies, and threw out the Port and Waterway Safety Assessment conclusion, because by limiting the Port of New York to just below the Tappan Zee Bridge, the rest of the river is an inland waterway, and inland waterways are governed by inland rules of the road, and inland rules of the road allow anchoring of any vessel, anywhere, at any time, for any duration, for any reason, except, of course, in the navigation channel, except, of course, on cable crossings, on water intakes, etc. So there are limits. It's not anywhere, it's almost anywhere.
So John, do you think the committee we should just set up a committee meeting for anchorages and discuss
Yes.
the weather in more detail there?
Yes, yeah, we need to have a committee meeting to review the response on the RNA. And
Yep, sorry, John.
yeah, we need to discuss next steps for the RNA process, the Plan B, because we don't know how this legal challenge is going to pan out. So we can't wait for that. We have to proceed with the RNA plan simultaneous to this legal challenge. And at some point, we'll know which route may bear fruit.
Words.
Yeah.
Set the meeting.
All right, John.
Yep.
Thanks.
And I don't see you guys that much. It's a pleasure to hear and see everybody. And I admire you all for your creation, your Hudson 7 baby. I think it's wonderful. And I know it's been in place some time now, but I don't want to forget how wonderful it is. I don't want to forget to mention how wonderful it is. So thank you. I'll mute.
So this group is next. Is it Paul?
Yep.
Paul?
Okay, as you know, I've been attending the Show Can Release working group meetings, which is led by New York City DEP. And, it took us a long while to get on that group because New York City doesn't feel like they affect our intakes at all. So it was thanks to Amanda Laval from Ulster County that helped us get onto the committee. And, New York City is still upset that we're going and attending the meetings. They actually contacted Ty and Bond and wanted to know what I was doing on helping you guys. But anyway, they always give an operations report where they tell what the status of the reservoir is. And I was concerned because the Shokan reservoir was close to 100%. And if the July eighth storm had crossed the Ashokan, we would have been really in a major flood because FEMA assumed that the reservoir would never be full during a major storm. New York City said they warned all the municipal leaders and they didn't think it was a big problem. Amanda and I also asked them, could they better manage their reservoirs? And they said, yeah, we'll think about it over the next 10 years. Then we started talking about the environmental impact statement that was, we sent comments in June of 2021. DEC said that a supplemental EIS was required and they received over 1,300 comments. So they feel it's going to take about 3 years to finish the supplemental EIS. And if there's any structures that have to be built to minimize the discharge of muddy water, it will take another 10 years. So we're talking like another 15 years before New York City does anything. And this has been going on since 2011. New York City is also doing a Century project. You know, the Ashokan Reservoir was 100 years old in 2015. Of course, they're a little behind schedule. We were hoping that they could put some of these things into place so that we wouldn't have these muddy discharges or flooding. The county right now is also doing a Lower Esopus stream management plan. Amanda and Ben Gannon are working on that, and they've done an outstanding job in hiring a great consultant. They got over 300 comments in a survey, and 70 people attended a workshop at the Marbletown Park. We're going to be waiting on that, and I'm really interested in what they're doing, but it sounds very good. Then DEC reported that turbidity has no effect on the fish in the Lower Esopus. So that was it. And a lot of times everybody kind of asks me, why are we so concerned about flooding? Because does it really affect the Hudson 7? And I just like to say that it significantly affects the Hudson 7 because whenever there is a flood, all the sewage plants overflow, all the combined sewer overflow into the river. And you can remember that every time there's a flood, it's always a warning, don't walk in this water because it carries diseases and everything else. So that's why I'm very concerned about flooding in respect to the Hudson 7. So does anyone have any questions?
No, thanks, Paul.
You know what, Jay, we missed the DWSP2 update, which was the first one with Mike Forging. Sorry about that, I didn't catch it.
Mike? There he goes.
Hey, yes, I'm here. Hey, so yeah, the August DWSP2 subcommittee meeting was very productive and we focused on protection and management strategies. I've spent a lot of time organizing that discussion into some potential priority issues that could be focused on for this plan. And that'll be a main point of discussion during our next meeting, which is on the 29th, next Friday. I also have a couple of maps for the subcommittee to approve as well. But for now, I was asked to clarify how climate smart community credits can be earned through the DWSP2 process. And so the Hudson 7 can receive up to 10 climate smart community credits through this process. 6 points can be earned if the plan accounts for climate change projections. And so that can mean several things, but it's definitely something that we can do. And then 4 more can be earned once 2 of the DWSP2 protection management methods have been implemented. So as long as we go about this plan the way that we're planning to, you should have no issue getting these 10 credits. And that's it for me for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike.
And Mike, the next DWSP2 meeting is when?
That's next Friday on the 29th at 10 a.m.
Chippy.
Chippy, yeah. So the Hudson 7, this is a process update. So when I started in August, Dan and I reached out to Steve Gladding, who helped us to understand where the EM and CP process currently was. The Hudson 7 is following two segments closely. Segment 20, which is the lower Hudson, and the upper Hudson construction segment 19. And so the installation and prelay mattressing EM and CP, the public comment period began on the 5th of August with a 30-day window. And so we got in there, and we were able to, I did speak to the town of Esopus, who submitted letters. And I don't know, Nick, if you have an update when I'm done, that'd be great, or not, but just.
Yeah, I don't have an update.
Okay,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So we were able to quickly pull the technical advisors together to meet with TDI and to find out, what was going on with the prelay mattressing. And so we met with TDI as well on the 1st of September with technical advisors. Dottie was there, Dan Shapley was there, Grant Jang was there. Paul was there, Paul Melrose, Gary was there. Emily wasn't available, and trying to think who else is a technical advisor that we should. Randy, sorry, you're also a voting member, was not able to attend. And so we had a good call with Josh Bagnato, who is, I forgot his title, but he is one of the principals of the construction process, and Jen White, who you all know. And we were able to ask a lot of questions about grapple hooks, distance from drinking water, and any impacts from the prelay mattressing process, what it was. And we were told that the mattressing, the cement blocks or the cement mattressing that comes out into the river on barges, there are divers that help to lead the mattressing down to the bottom to cover the infrastructure, that whatever part of the river. And so there seemed to be, and Paul, you might have more to add to this in terms of your insights in feeling comfortable with their explanation of the prelay mattressing. And before you do, the one result from that meeting was that TDI agreed to communicate with all the water operators and the Hudson 7 within 24 hours or more before they start that process, prelay mattressing process. And they put that in writing and submitted it to the PSC. And all of that is in your source materials. So Paul, do you have more to relay about that, your impressions?
Well, the concrete mattresses are used to protect existing utilities that they're going to be crossing. None of the mattresses are very, very close to any of the intakes, so we didn't think it would be an impact. But as Rebecca stated, we wanted to get notified when a mattress was put close to one of the intakes, and they agreed to that, which was a pretty big concession on their part. So I was pleased with that.
Right, and what was the closest distance? Do you
I knew you were
recall?
going to ask me that, but I don't remember.
Maybe I have it really quick because that's important. I think it was 1,000 feet,
Was it there was
Around
Highland?
1,000 feet to Highland.
Thailand, right?
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was gonna say their lines cross just like 1,000 feet south of our intake.
of your intake. Yep, that's it. So,
Close to the nearest gas line. Gas line down by the bridge is the closest one.
closest to the bridge.
Yeah, there's a gas line down that way.
So what also came out of that meeting is TDI suggesting that first of all, TDI is communicating directly to the water operators about the upcoming construction, EM and CP. And so, what role can the Hudson 7 play in terms of helping to coordinate? And TDI has offered to meet on a regular basis, leading up to the construction EM and CP, which was supposed to be released in December, but it's delayed until 2024. So there's more time to think through and organize. And the Chippy Committee, actually, their work concluded. Trying to remember at what point in the process that happened, but it did. And so it would need to be reinstated, the Chippy Committee, and probably should, so that the Hudson 7 can discuss what its role is and how to support the water operators in the towns. So we could be of assistance filling any gaps. I'm not sure what the Hudson 7 would, decide to do. But that offer's on the table, so that would be.
When you're
really
involved, do you think it's necessary this time to do it? Is it, you told it 6 months out? Or do you think it's just coordinate through membership?
I think just receiving communication from them, know what's going on will be fine.
Rather than,
Having any extra meetings. Know what they're gonna do. And they're not gonna put it within a line near us, so we should be all right.
We think we need to form something. I think form it later on.
the Chippy Committee was Gary, Bill, Emily, Randy, Paul, Dan, and Shannon. So what you're suggesting is not to reassemble the Chippy Committee and instead,
You could send out an email to everybody, tell them what it is, and see if they have any comments or they want to get together, and then call it good.
I think they're
I'd
gonna,
say not necessary.
if they're gonna coordinate with all the water operators. We may be in good shape there, but if we see that it's not working the way we want, maybe we can reform at that point instead of having another meeting. We have another meeting.
you all comfortable with that?
Yeah, I had a quick question about the September 1st meeting. So I don't know who the technical advisors were or are on that team. For some reason, I thought I was one of them.
Yeah, so it's the technical advisors, it wasn't a committee.
Oh,
So they were the
okay.
individual, that was each technical advisor of everything, engineering, water quality, general.
Okay.
To meet with TDI in the midst of just trying to make sure that if there was any public comment, because we didn't meet as the council because it was canceled last month.
Right.
And there was a 2-week window for the Hudson 7 to take an action, which we couldn't have done actually, because we would have had to have vote on
Have to call an emergency meeting or something.
or have, right.
I need to
So
take off.
it was just a meeting in order to understand the pre-lay mattressing process. And the notes are all available. If you want to see those, would you like to see those, Nick?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We had new business?
Wait a second, did Randy leave? You have to adjourn. Do you have to vote? Do you have to have a quorum to adjourn the meeting?
I think that we can't pass any motions or anything any longer.
I don't think there's
So
any.
technically, don't you need to make a motion to end the meeting?
Yeah, that's,
So I
You can-
think
you
you
can
can
do
just
that.
I
adjourn.
don't need a motion to.
Oh, no, okay.
You said the work is finished. No, the coordinator can just say,
We're
okay,
done.
we're adjourning.
We're finished.
yeah, that's it, actually.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. It was great. I do see on here, not tie that CSX bridge, that bridge was fixed.
John, there's a question about the CSX bridge. That was down on the south of here?
Almost across the
Across the
river.
river.
Well, so we've worked on now several of them. Are you asking about the one at Blue Point across from the Shadows in Poughkeepsie?
Yes.
Yeah, that was fixed a couple years ago. So that's good that it was fixed. The problem that surfaced there is that so these are bridges over outlets from marshes, outlet inlets from marshes that are cut off by the railroad. They were never sized to be big enough to actually allow the marsh to fully respirate with the tide. They were built to keep the marsh from overwhelming the railroad. it serves the railroad. So they were never big enough in the first place. But what they did when they repaired that one is instead of a rectangular opening, they poured it solid concrete, except for 2 4-foot or so diameter culverts. So the area for water to pass through is less than even before. And so we've made a point that there are 2 more bridges that were worked on this year down just south of Storm King, across from Cold Spring. Same issue. What we've learned is that when they do these jobs, they do not need DEC permits. And the Army Corps, in the case of the 2 at Storm King, received the construction plans, but are required to respond to the construction plans within 45 days and failed to do so because they didn't have enough staff. And what we've now seen is as the way these go forward, see the one at Blue Point, I could never look down in the marsh from behind during construction. And they cofferdammed off on the Hudson River side to do the concrete work. We assumed they cofferdammed off the other side. But what we learned at Storm King is that they cofferdammed at the Hudson side to keep the tide from coming in, and then they pumped the entire marsh dry. So we've brought that to the DEC, and the DEC at the executive level, as in Basil Sagos, is now looking at ways to change the relationship between New York State, DEC on our behalf with the railroads for future projects. So even though I would consider all 3 of them losses, they're good that these bridges were so crappy. I went under them when trains went over and the bridge would move and there were missing nuts and bolts and they were shimming up areas where the foundations was settling. So they just shove in a couple of pieces of a 1/2-inch steel plate. I mean, you wouldn't have a kitchen, you wouldn't have a dining room table that was shimmed up like this. So we're delighted that they're fixed because avoiding an accident is the ultimate goal. But we need to tune up their environmental stewardship as they do these repairs. That's a long answer to saying yes, the Blue Point.
No, John, that was the right answer.
Thank you. You'll be sorry. You'll be consider carefully before you ask anything else.
No, but they fixed it, they just didn't fix it right. Bottom line. Paul?
I just had a question about, so how are we going to proceed with Chippy? I didn't hear what Randy said.
Right now, they're just gonna interface with the operators. If we feel we need to form a committee again, we will, but this time, we're not gonna form another committee.
So they're going to deal with each operator?
They have to notify the operators.
I'm sorry.
They have to
Well, the-
notify. Go on.
The operator's going to get together and talk to them, or is each town going to talk to TDI?
We will figure that out, John, but we felt that at this point, there was no need to put that group back together. We'll see how it goes forward, and Randy's gonna talk to us about it a little further.
Okay.
Just to form a committee, to have another meeting, Randy felt it wasn't necessary at this point, that they were gonna coordinate everything they're doing through the operators, which I assume, as you said, is all the operators, not at once, but they'll relay all their information to them as we go forward. You guys got enough on your plate.
Thank you, Jay.
Jay, before we close, I know we're over, but I was able to pull up my report and it's really quick. And I would just love to just share quickly the actions, if I may.
We'll give you 2 minutes.
Okay. All right, so.
5 minutes later, I'll give you 2
Yeah, I'm
minutes.
sliding into home plate here. So in August and September, I developed a draft of the goals for the Hudson 7, the coordinator consultant work plan, and task timeline. And it's a lot of information. And in there actually are some of these links that we talked about, like notes and things, and I can brief you over time. So trying to put everything in one place, so it's all public facing. The following actions were taken in the last month and a half. So organizing the Hudson 7 meetings, like we discussed, working with the Hudson 7 treasurer to invoice municipalities and counties to facilitate payments for 2023. Gary and I have a weekly one-on-one. We've been doing that for 6 weeks now, just to check in and develop the work, developing goals, timeline, and the work plan, which you have in your source materials. Outreach to Dutchess County regarding a legislative district map that Devin made, which is awesome. It shows all the legislative districts of the whole watershed, not just, small segments, and so that we can really beef up our contact lists and make sure that everybody's accounted for and knows what we do. Every month I communicate to all of the district legislative reps and municipalities so they get your minutes and agendas and materials so they can follow along. Developed the CHIPI EM and CP process document, which is in that timeline, so that we can all kind of see together what the process is, because that's our concern, is the process and making sure we know what it is so we can speak to it. Facilitated the call with TDI regarding pre-lay mattressing with the technical advisors that led to additional protections for the intakes. Facilitated meeting with newly formed Anchorage Committee to successfully submit a letter to the Coast Guard requesting the RNA process and the response. Meeting with Randy only once, but I want to keep that going to discuss strategies for organizing water operators and communications with the DEC and DOH on a regular basis, perhaps quarterly basis. Working to develop a system for all the Hudson 7 committee work, including open meetings law, and making sure we're following all of that to the letter and all of our materials are available for the public. And we're looking for a way to put our information into a repository so it's easy, like eCode 360 or other ways of just making everything simple rather than Google Docs and Drives and things like that. Next steps is following the approval of the legal invoices to meet with our lawyer, as we discussed, and with Gary, and to start bringing back information for us to discuss on our 501c3 options. Consider a facilitated session to work on our mission. And the CHIPI stuff is on pause. So I wasn't sure what work there might be for me in that regard. So we'll wait and see. And there's a link in this report to this timeline that I want you to see that takes my work plan and spreads it out over a 1.5-year period. So you can see how those tasks fit into a monthly time frame, which is what I'll be reporting back to you all on. And thanks for the extra time. Sorry for the.
That's right. I was late, I could not give it to you.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's it.
Sorry, I do have a question. Are we supposed to be, are we supposed to be doing something to turn this from draft to like approve the final work program for work plan? Or is that for next meeting? I just was wondering.
For the next meeting, but you need the format?
Well, just it says draft, so I was wondering,
Oh,
what do we
yeah.
have to do as a council to make this year
Adopt it.
official? So,
Adopt
yeah,
it.
do you want us to do it next meeting then?
Yeah, I think you should look at it, make sure everybody's happy, there's changes you want to make.
Yeah.
Look it over and say, just adopt it, and then look 6 months from now and say, oops.
And the goals. And the goals. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And we still have a quorum, don't we? So do we have
You
to make
do
a
have a
motion?
quorum. You want to make a motion, Jay?
Oh, you betcha. We got a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
all right.
Aye. We need 6:12.